Morning. Thanks for coming out. Well, I'm Aaron Davis. And so a few months ago we decided we needed a new project. We had some time to fill and wanted to create something. So we decided we wanted to do some pinball and decided we were going to create some custom pinball machines. So thought we'd get together and bring what we could down here, what we've been working on, and get together for a little talk, just kind of talk about the process and what we did through creating the concept and turning it into an actual physical game, and what we hope to do with that experience to get more people creating games.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of history, kind of what, why we're here. We've both kind of been tinkerers for forever, building our own components. I started with, I think when I was 13, with being a hacker and getting in trouble with lots of different things. But when I got into video games, I realized that I really like tinkering with them more than playing them. I'm not very good at video games. I'm not very good at pinball. I tend to walk away from games after one man dies or I lose one ball. And so my first project was kind of a MAME type cabinet, which I started and never actually finished. And then I moved to video pinball. So if you've seen the one on the floor, the Hyperpin, that one's mine, and that's been a 3-year project. That's a never-ending project because I keep adding things to it. The first year was keeping it from crashing. The second year was putting in some coils underneath, so we actually had some physical feedback. And then I decided I wanted to do pinball, like Aaron. So Aaron and I kind of started talking about what would it take to do that. And we realized that we could go and we can build a bunch of custom components to do that. We both kind of tinkered with things like Arduino and Raspberry Pi, and really loved the idea of being able to have a platform where we don't have to worry about the stuff underneath. We wanted to do Wi-Fi, we buy a little module and plug Wi-Fi into it. We wanted to do Bluetooth, we could do Bluetooth. We wanted to control relays, you buy a little shield that plugs into it to do relays. And we kind of thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something similar for pinball, where all the stuff underneath people can build, but if somebody had that available, then we would just build on top of it and we would do what we want. And that's kind of how it started. We wanted a way to be somewhat modular so that we can build the game, and I don't want a lot of pinballs in my house. It's just, I don't have a lot of room for it. So I wanted to be able to have multiple games, and that's why the Hyperpin came around, and that's why the whole idea of having this pinball where I can just take the playfield out, pull it out, and put in a brand new playfield in, and just have it plug into the existing hardware. And that's kind of where it started. So we started looking at the different games that are out there, and what we really liked about pinballs, what we didn't like about pinballs. We knew we wanted to do things like flashers, and we wanted to do different colored LEDs on it. We wanted shaker motor type capabilities. We wanted the standard components. We wanted to be able to go to Marco or to Pinball Life and just buy off-the-shelf components, plug them in, and have them work. And that's kind of how we started. We also looked at, when it came to the playfield, I haven't worked on a lot of pinballs, but every time I have, it's worrying about the playfield falling on top of my head as I get my body in the cabinet, and worrying about if I need to pull out of the cabinet, what do I do with it? What do I rest it against? So that's what we came up with, kind of the frame design that's currently patent pending, to allow us to have the playfield completely out of the cabinet, upright on its side, laying down without any components touching the ground, without any plastic touching the ground, and it's stable. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, and I think that going through the process of solving those things, at the same time, I started thinking further out, if we could solve these problems for us, going through the process of creating our own custom games, we can create a platform that others could build their own games on. We all get drawn with the idea of, I have this cool new concept for a game. I'd love to be able to make a game based on some new idea. But getting down to figuring out how to handle your power, or how to set up the cabinets, or how do you get video, back boxes and stuff worked into that, all those things are problems that need to be solved kind of across the board. But really, it's enabling people to get in and create new original games. And so if we can do what we can do to expedite that process, hopefully we get some new titles and new original content coming out for pinball. And that was a big driver for me, is I'd love to create something out of nothing. And so if I have an idea for a game and I don't need to solve everything, one off, figure out how to do power and control boards and stuff like that, and I can quickly get it up on this platform that we have and start building a cool looking game, that's the fun part. And I think that that's what has been most exciting about everybody we've got to talk to at the show here, is seeing people come up and go, so I've got this idea to create a game, and I could take what you're doing and more quickly do it, and everyone gets excited, and they love the idea of actually being able to produce something. And for me, I like the idea of being able to enable more people to create more things. And as we've been working through the process and figuring out how we want to organize things, or how we structure the cabinets or the frames that hold the play fields, looking at all the games that are out there, like, we want to make it so that we're not limiting the creative mind. It's like all these problems need to be solved, and if you have like a cool artistic idea, it's a matter of like getting the playfield set up in that way, and then figure out where we're going to be putting all the parts that drive it. And I think that I think it would be really nice to see like people bringing in new ideas and new concepts into pinball, and see what new fresh ideas do for everybody else, and inspire other people to do the same thing. So it's kind of some of my motivators as well.
And I mean, definitely, if you guys have questions, I think there's a mic somewhere out there that you can ask questions. But we've seen a lot of people move into kind of that custom pinball, where they have these ideas, they want to build them. We really approached this initially not as we want to go in and produce a full pinball cabinet with an original game that we're going to sell to people. That wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to build a pinball. We just wanted to build our own pinballs, and then we kind of stuck to that Arduino or Raspberry Pi model, where it'd be cool to build all the components and the platform to allow anybody to do that, and everybody will be able to take any of these components and initially as we're starting out, you'll need to know how to program into it and how to send commands to it. It'll be fairly straightforward. I want to turn on a solenoid. I send it on command to the solenoid that I want to turn on with the delay. So it's fairly straightforward. But as we move forward, build kind of an SDK on top of it, build some tools on top of it to allow you to use a wizard to build components, to do your own testing very, very quickly. But what's kind of important to remember is that we really are building this because we want to build a pinball machine. And we want to make it as easy as possible for us to do so. We took that idea 3 months ago I think we had a blank playfield a month and a half ago, to putting the components on and literally wiring all the LEDs and everything within a week, and get it all working and writing the code for it. So it's been kind of a fun process, but we also, we built our prototype. We're already looking at the next version. I mean, these things aren't even 10 days old, and we're looking at how we can make them better, because once we're doing it, yeah, there's a question.
I'm just curious, are you using the Arduino language for programming it, or?
We're not using the Arduino language for programming.
Okay.
These boards right now appear as components on the computer, either joysticks or USB controllers.
Oh, okay.
And so you can just open up a terminal and send commands to them. They give you that interface that you can literally type the commands and have the flippers fire and have the LEDs turn on. I'm using the Arduino example just more of how the Arduino platform is, and we would love to build a community around the platform, so that people can go, it'd be really cool if I can build this control board that interfaces with the ones that are already out there, and they can do that. Or as we build new components, we make them available, you'd be able to go and say, I want a control board to control my solenoids and my flashers and my shaker motor, and I want a control board to control my LEDs and my switches. And you just pick and choose the ones that you want. And you can start small. You can say, I just want to do a little test. I want to create a little play field with 2 flippers and some LEDs, and I'm going to use a lower version of this, and then I'll upgrade to the bigger one if that's kind of the direction that we go. So really, I use the Arduino example because with Arduino you can just go and start small, buy kind of a kit, if you will. They'll give you, I don't know if you've purchased Raspberry Pi or Arduino, but you'll get like the board, and you'll get a bunch of connector wires, and you might get a Wi-Fi module, or just a prototyping shield with a bunch of screw terminals on it that you put together. So those are kind of the things that we want to start opening up as we're building this platform. But we're fairly early on. We're not ready to sell the boards yet. We just wanted to come to the show and kind of give people an idea of where we're at, what our vision is. And we'd love the feedback. We'd love to understand and learn the kind of things that people are building. And hopefully this time next year, there'll be people coming in with with examples of how they've used it and how they're planning on using some of the components. Yeah.
So what is the core? Is it an i7 core, or what is the main thing that's driving it?
So the question, what's the main engine that drives it? So right now it's literally a laptop.
It could be any laptop?
It could be any laptop. So today, the question was, do you need a computer to run the pinball? Today, the answer is yes. We're looking at a couple of different options. One would be that there's a custom board that is just running the pinball. You can use a laptop. You'll be able to use a laptop to build kind of the rule set, and that gets downloaded into the brains of the pinball. Today, it's a laptop. We may make a platform available that has the computer built in. We haven't made those decisions yet. But we definitely see there being like an ARM processor running very specific pinball-y stuff. So it understands the coils, it understands the rule sets, and understands how to drive the DMD and whatnot. So you don't need a full-blown computer. But when we do get to the computer to that stage, we'll communicate the kind of power that the computer will have. The nice thing about having a full computer in there, some of the ideas that we've had is, if I've got a game room and I've only got 4 pinballs in it, and I want a jukebox, I'm gonna have to lose one of the pinballs to put a jukebox in place. But it's a full computer, so I can drive all my music through it and have that become my jukebox as well. Or I can play Tilt, one of the videos. I got a party at my place. I can play that video on the back box because the back box is an LCD and it's a full computer. So there's pros and cons to going computer versus a custom microprocessor board, and we're just going down that path right now. Any other questions? Can't see anybody. Yes, in the back.
What kind of transistors are you using to drive the solenoids?
So right now they're MOSFETs, and Steve can answer that question better. I don't know the exact model, but we just use MOSFETs to drive it. So they're solid state, no relays. The way that the controller board is set up right now, it's 32 different ports on it in banks of 8, 4 banks of 8, individual voltage for each of the banks, meaning that you could do up to 4 voltages on a single board. So you could drive your 12-volt flashers on one, you can drive a 24-volt shaker motor on another, and 50, 70 volts for the solenoids themselves.
Do you have any plans to sell like a kit to have the driver board plus a computer, maybe some switches, stuff like that, with a power supply in like a big model that you can use to just go to like your website and just have like a quick purchase buy and have everything just show up that you need to at least get the brains of it started?
So that's a great question. So are we going to have a development type of a kit? So it's definitely something we're planning. We haven't finalized what that's going to look like, obviously, but it can definitely be all the parts you need to go and build your own playfield. So things like the power supply, a control board, an LED board, a switch controller, much like you would buy a development kit for Raspberry Pi, where it comes with a bunch of different parts. Whether we make the things like the flippers and the pop bumpers and whatnot available, it remains to be seen. But like I said, you can go and get off-the-shelf parts to do that. If there's enough demand to have a kit with all the parts where you just go to one place and we ship it all to you, that's definitely something we're looking at. But to answer your question, yes, you'll be able to go to a website and say, I want this and this and this and this, and have it shipped to you.
I think too, like, the approach of having that kid kind of model, for people that want to learn, that just love pinball and have a cool design idea, if we can create like packages that help like facilitate a quick start, where I can take maybe a game with the pieces that it needs and an existing rule set and get that running and see, this code is running this game. I get that. I can start to bridge the gap and start tweaking and modifying things. It'd be interesting to see like where, what people need to get going. Because obviously, like the people that are creating custom pins right now have the skills that it takes to go through and collect all the pieces, find out all that it takes to actually get the game up and running, and then work on the game itself. There's a lot of people that we've talked to here. I mean, like, we didn't expect to have these half-hour conversations every time somebody came by the booth to talk about all their ideas and things they'd love to see happen. But you got some smart people who know how to install software and know how to design art and create create, work on games and stuff like that, who, when it turns into like, how do I actually make, the controller board move flippers and how do I get the power into the box, like, if they didn't have to solve those problems, it's getting them at a better starting point. So you can come in and figure out, like, if I can use this existing kit to kind of fast track my art concept and learn through that process, it's an opportunity to get people that may have been too intimidated to start that process actually doing it. I think it's a good chance too to actually make it an educational opportunity as well. I mean, as a project, I'm always motivated by, I want to make that, and so by having something to accomplish, you'll find out the things that you're already able to do, or the things you reach out to a buddy for, or the things you're just going to sit down and learn so you can actually do it yourself. And creating a complete pinball machine is a great way to go and learn some of that stuff. And so I think there's a good opportunity for people who want to get into working with circuit boards and power and programming and stuff, to say, this pinball project, through that process I'm going to get a working knowledge of a lot of things I didn't have before, and in the end I'm going to have a pinball game to work on, and see what people do with that new knowledge the next time they pick up another kit and start from scratch.
You kind of touched on my next question. Have you guys looked into trying and see if you can drive an existing game with this? I mean, I know you could, but have you tried it, and what would the extra steps be involved to control an existing game and kind of just rewrite it?
So that's a great question. It's actually, so we've had that conversation multiple times throughout the last couple of days. It's not something that we've done yet. We are actively looking for a fully populated playfield that we can literally flip over, disconnect the bulbs from it, rewire all the solenoids and the switches into our controllers, and then build a rule set for it. So it's something that we want to do. It's not something that we've done yet. We don't really see any reason why we can't do that, because it's just standard components. We don't have to replace the coils or anything like that. So, careful, Ron. So the short answer is no, we haven't done it. Long answer is we're hoping to do it, just to show how the platform can work.
Now I've got a question.
Sure.
As far as the actual play field,
Yep.
I saw you also had your own play field. Will you be able to buy just a play field from you guys?
So you mean just we'll be able to buy a blank playfield? What we've been talking to people about and getting a feel for what they would like is that you get kind of two camps. You'll get the people that want, I just want the boards, I'm going to do my own thing, and you get the people that are like, can you get me like the playfield and the frame that goes with it? And that's definitely something that we're looking at offering. We've also thought about coming up with kind of a generic design and selling the playfield with a generic design so that people can put their own components on it and then do the rule set. It's kind of a generic game, but for their own game they can customize, they can choose the colors, they can choose the sounds that get played, they can choose the scoring and the animations and the videos and whatnot, and the rule set and multi-ball, etc. Without having to drill any holes in the playfield. They can take an existing playfield that's already not populated, but ready to be populated. We've also talked to, we've had some preliminary discussions with Rich from This Old Game about allowing people to come up with kind of the art, and we would silk screen or print that art on clear vinyl that would then go on top of that playfield. So when you get a playfield, not only is it ready to be populated, it actually has a bunch of art on it that you've either customized or used an existing one that it's not a whitewood one or a whiteboard. It's actually looks like a pinball. Right. So that's definitely it was interesting when we came down here. We weren't expecting the reaction that we got. We had high hopes, but the feedback we've gotten from people that have built custom games and would like to build custom games have been overwhelming. They're just and overwhelmingly positive. Over and over and over, we've had people say, "I'd love to build my own pinball, but I don't know the guts. If I could go and if you could make it easy for me to put some toys and some parts on a playfield and very easily hook it all up. I don't want to do a lot of soldering. I don't want to do a lot of custom stuff and having to build my own circuits. Just screw terminals or connectors where I just wire everything up and it works. Where do I get one? So that's really the hope that we had, and it seems that that's what people want. Yes, question there.
You have like lots of ins and outs, or you have to do lots of many multiplexing.
So we're not worried about the ins and outs. I think right now what we're driving with the prototype upstairs is we can drive 32 coils, 200 LEDs, and 76 switches at the same time. Theoretical limits. We can theoretically plug 16 of these boards into a single computer. That's 512 coils. Yeah, Hercules done well. Yeah, so, and then we've only got one LED controller in there, but it gets recognized as a serial device, a USB serial device. So there's no reason for us to not put 400 LEDs on it or 800 LEDs. I mean, or 8 switch ports, right? The nice thing about the way that, right now the switch and the LED controllers are truly prototype. Over the next little bit, we'll be building what's going to be closer to the retail version of those. And they're pretty small. Like right now, if you look at the playfield, if you come upstairs and look at the playfield, if you haven't seen it, they're like 2 inches by 2 inches. So you can go and you can drop, and they're going to be inexpensive. You can drop one in each corner if that's how many switches you needed, and then wire back to those locations without having all these wires coming off the playfield onto the boards that are in the cabinet. Right? So you can. We foresee that the only real board that you will have in the cabinet will be the solenoid board, because that's the most expensive of all the boards. But the other ones are going to be low enough cost that they'll ship with the playfields. Right? So I don't have to worry about this massive cables coming off. So if you actually look at the way that the prototype has, there's 2 switch controllers on the playfield. There's 2 in the cabinet, 2 on the playfield. So there's 36 switch controllers. There's, I think right now we've got 16 different coils or 18 different coils being fired. And there's close to 130 LEDs on it. And the wires coming off, there's 1 USB cable. There's 1 connector for for LED power. And there's 1 16-pin connector, 15-pin connector for the solenoids. And that's it. Right, because some of that logic moves onto the playfield, I don't have to take it off the playfield, because the USB gets me all of that information in a single cable. There's a little hub, and all 3 boards plug into that hub, and it's very easy to remove and whatnot. Yeah. Yes, another question there.
Yeah, I'm just curious, is there an environment that you guys are making rule sets on your own PC, or like do you have to make that environment yourself?
So the question was, do we have plans on building our own environment so that you can build rule sets versus write your own? That is definitely the goal. The goal is we want to abstract the complexity of building a game. And some of that will be hardware abstraction, some of that will be software abstraction. And let me kind of explain that. So with our board right now, it just knows that there's a coil on each port, and based on the signal, it's going to know how long to fire it for. We're going to pull some of that logic in our V2 into the board. So for example, it'll know that pins 1 and 2 on the first bank is the left flipper. And it understands that it's a flipper, and therefore I should never fire both coils at the same time. And I should not fire the primary for more than a very short burst, because I'm going to burn that coil out. So that's part of the abstraction. The second abstraction is we want to get to a point where you don't have to worry about building the rule set in a scripting environment, if you will. We, for the California Extreme, we're actually building this little demo that will take you through a wizard experience that says, how many flippers do you have? 2. How many pop bumpers do you have? 3. How many slingshots do you have? 3. Okay, for flipper number 1, is that the left or the right flipper? Is it upper right, upper left? What switch is it connected to? And I'll talk to the switch controller and know that when switch number 1 gets triggered, that's the left flipper. Second flipper, which flipper is it? It's the right flipper. Switch number 2 triggers it. What switches control each of the slingshot? What switch controls the pop bumpers? And you'll go run, and it's building the configuration in the background for the rule set just for the basics. So now you'll be able to actually hit the flippers, have the pop bumpers work, and the slingshots work. Next, you'll be able to say, when I hit this particular switch, and this, you know, the way that we envision some of this, and this is further out, it's very early now, is almost like if you use Visio, like a drag and drop drawing type of an interface. When switch 1 gets hit, turn these lights on to this color, play this sound, run this video, add this to the score, right? And then you go compile, and you'll be able to run it off your computer. So if you get one of these kits and you have your own computer, you'll be able to do that and then download that configuration to an actual pin. So when you plug in the playfield, it has that configuration in it, right? Early on, we totally see working with a bunch of people that are going to write their own programming, and we'll support them in that, and we'll help them with that, because we want to get the feedback, right? We're going to be doing a lot of different things, and if the board doesn't do something that somebody wants to do, and there's a relationship there, we'll work with you to modify it, to add those capabilities. It's just, a lot of it is just software and firmware, so we can do that. But we want to get the feedback, so as we're building this, we make a board that can do as much as what people want it to do as it can, without having to, 6 months from now, I'll have you buy a board, and 6 months from now, I go, yeah, you're gonna have to get rid of that board. We're gonna have to completely replace it because we've completely changed the architecture, and that's not the goal, right? But the goal. So initially, you'll be building your own. We could give you some code snippets and give you an idea of what it would take to actually talk to it, how to discover it, and how to talk to it. But the end goal, after we build the full machine and we have these full dev kits, to have a wizard-like interface to allow you to build the rule set. And because the rule sets are just configuration, you'll be able to take that, modify it, tweak it, share it, put it back in the game. So imagine, you have one of these the machines, and your kid has a party, and you want to put the mode into a kid mode, or the game into a kid mode. You can get rid of things like the complex multi-game and jackpots, and just have them kick the ball around and just collect points without having to worry about all these complex rules that they're going to have to learn. And then when they're done, you change it back to the complex one. Right? It's all software at that point. And that's part of the reason with the platform is we want the hardware to be robust enough that software can do anything that we need it to do. It's going to be very much software driven, because at that point you can reconfigure it on the fly. Yes, another question.
You had mentioned some kind of a standard playfield that you can order and customize yourself.
Yep.
If you go that route, are you going to have like a repository where people that have made their own from it can upload their software? So if I wanted to try your thing, I could just download it, put it in mine, and see what it does.
I'll just repeat it. So, are we looking at allowing people to share what they've done with the custom play fields and whatnot? The answer is yes. We definitely want to build a community around this. We want to build a community where not only can you share I bought a generic play field, or I built my own and here's the code for it. When we release our first original table, we would like to make that rule set available to people to tweak. And we'd love to see people make it better and modify it and share that. So we definitely see this forum where people can share these configuration files, can talk about them and say, I want to do this multi-ball and I'm having a little trouble. How would I do that? We truly believe that for this platform to be successful, the do-it-yourselfers and the people that want to build custom pinballs need to be involved, and we want you guys involved early on, so that we can build the best product and have it as open as possible. We're not looking at retiring off the boards. We're looking at making the board so that people can build pinballs. We'd love to see at a future show to have a whole section of custom pinballs that people have built.
Yeah, and I think that one of the objectives we had too when we got into this is we wanted to bring new technologies to pinball, but keep pinball traditional. So I mean, simple things like working with the RGB LEDs, where you can start programmatically changing color effects. You can work new game dynamics in play, and I think that by trying to turn pinball into something that it's not, that wasn't our goal. We didn't want to bring in an experience that people didn't already love. We wanted to get more people creating traditional pinball that they love and have stood the test of time, but be able to do it more efficiently, get to the creative part a lot faster. And I think that's where creating things like the wizards and whatnot that make it easier to start creating cool rule sets. That's a good use of technology that doesn't detract from the pinball experience that we all like. doing lighting effects and stuff like that, even changing, creating new sensors and stuff like that that prevent us from needing to have, say, like wire switches through the playfield that creates wear points and stuff. Finding different ways to track things moving around, or different ways to track scoring or ball activity that, again, don't detract from what we all love, but create new ways to create unique scoring and different dynamics that don't exist. And I think that, some of the ideas that people have brought to the table up there have said, I have this thing that I've never seen in a pinball machine that I think would be really cool to do, but I know it would fit into an existing game, so I could take what you guys have done here and take a game that you've designed, and I know that I can modify this one part to do the idea I have. And I said, yeah, that's when you take care of all like the existing challenges, your mind's free to start thinking of new things you want to accomplish. And I think that I think that's, for me, that's the most fun part, because we all have those ideas, but it's like you keep squashing them, telling your mind to stop it. I don't know how to create a machine. But if you could get to where you're on the playfield and you have that cool new unique component that you want to see put into that game, that's what I want to see happening. I want to see new unique stuff in games on unique titles, and see what else that inspires in other people. So back to the comment about community, like I can't wait to be surprised by saying, how did they pull that off? Like they took the platform and did it in a way that we would have never anticipated, and that's exciting to see what all these minds can do when they're enabled to do more quickly.
And I'll give you an example. I was talking to one gentleman Friday, and he had bought, I guess Bally had built for one of their slot machines, because they built slot machines. They had built this this pinball playfield that sat on top of it, and they tested it. They built about 10 of them, and ended up scrapping the project. And he was able to get a hold of one of these 10 years ago. It's been sitting in a box for 10 years, and now he's looking at this board and he goes, I can finally take that and make it work, because I can now interface it into something that Bally never finished and never released, and I can go and write my own rule set to make it work. I can take, I have that coffee table that looks like a pinball. I can actually make it kind of work by just using this control board, right? Hide it underneath and put some basic logic into it and make it work. So, he's talking about taking an Arduino and having Arduino talk to it to send the commands to it, which is just a serial port. So as long as you can recover it and discover it, you can talk to it in theory. So, I mean, we're as Aaron said, I think we're going to be very surprised over the next few months as we make these available of what people are going to come up with and what unique things they're going to do that we would never think of, right? And it's so exciting. It's cool to be able to be part of that and help build that community. And we truly believe that there's so many people out there that love pinball so much that want to see pinball grow and have a resurgence, if you will. But we need a lot of people that are out there experimenting and trying new things and building new things. And wouldn't it be cool if I could go and build a playfield but not have to worry about the logistics of building a cabinet, logistics about having the system to drive everything, the logistics of having an LCD in the back, and how do I ship it and where do I get the power from? I just worry about the playfield, and I work with somebody to build the playfield, and I sell the playfields. I can make a business out of it if I want, or I can just do a one-off. Yeah. Right? It's my it's I don't know. It's my son's graduation. I'm going to build him a pinball because it's custom for what he loves to do. So I mean, it's just we think it's a great platform for people to build on. We hope that people are going to embrace it and start running with it, and we know that we're going to be doing a lot of tweaks over the next little bit based on feedback, both from what we learn. We plugged this in a week ago and then found, for example, we can enable the power supply. We can also disable the power supply. The problem is the power supply has these massive big ass capacitors on them, so even though we've disabled power, it still trickles power for a while into it. So now our V2 will drain that power. Right, so lots of different things that we're learning, and we're going to get feedback and make changes. Totally do that. Totally do that. I know people that I don't know if you've seen some of the software for that, going completely off track. There's software that a buddy of mine uses that shows him what his house is going to look like at Christmas. And he spends a ridiculous amount of time and money on it. I'm waiting for somebody to go, hey, I used your LED controller to do really cool lighting. My fish are, in my aquarium, my fish are going crazy. I fully expect that. I put it in my car. My car now does different light shows underneath as I drive down the road. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with this stuff that is just crazy. And like our LED controller now, this one, for example, is running in demo mode. The LED controller has a demo mode right now that we're just playing with, that you just put in demo mode and it just goes and starts turning lights on. It's just chases lights around. And what's really interesting for me, and I know Aaron can talk to this, my kids are a little older than his, but for the first time in a long time, you know, my kids have always been like, yeah, Dad's playing on the Pac-Man cabinet, or he's building his virtual pinball and stuff. But now when we start hooking up coils and I could see them going, wow, that's so cool. I can move parts around and I can change the lights. And for the first time, my kids are actually getting engaged with the work that I've been doing, right? Before it's been like, oh, Dad's geeking out again in the garage. Right? Now it's fun. So bottom line is we're doing this because we enjoy it and it's fun, and we're do-it-yourselfers, and we just want to enable other do-it-yourselfers to do what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it makes for a cool project and stuff too. I mean, like, I look at it like, again, like my greatest opportunities to learn is to, like, you know, solve a problem. And, you know, I love the idea of maybe like taking these kind of kits that we come up with and be able to take it to like a junior high tech ed class and be like, here's a semester project. You know, we're working with, like, you know, manipulating play fields and writing some software and doing art design, and maybe the tech ed classes coordinate with the art department to make this complete machine. You know, it's a great result from, like, taking the time to use it as a teaching tool. And I think, you know, even for me too, like, you know, I've had a lot of experience building things. I have a lot of experience working with software, but I'm having a blast like learning about the hardware controlling the software, that like last gap. And so for me, it's like, it's a great opportunity to work on a really cool project that is teaching me a lot of things I never knew before.
It's not just that. Aaron won't tell you this, but I got a call from him when he was giggling like a little girl when he learned to weld. Right?
Yeah, so, you know,
welding the frame,
yeah,
right?
set the framework in place. It was like, what a cool reason to sit down and figure out how to do something I didn't know how to do before.
Yeah. I didn't think he'd ever get excited when I sent him a coupon from Harbor Freight Tools to go buy a welder.
Well,
right?
the first concept was like, okay, let's find somebody in the area that has the tools to do it. So I'm figuring out, how do I articulate what it is I want to make? By the time I started down that road, I was like, you know what, I can go and figure out how to do it. And they get this coupon, it's like, go over to Harbor Freight and pick this up, you know? So went over and picked it up, and it was a blast. It was really cool. And it was cool to see something that I've had in my mind for a few years actually in there in the play field. So, you know, again, like the people that were coming by the booths, we weren't expecting to have these big elaborate conversations, but, you know, unbolting that thing and pulling it in and out all day long and have it hold up to that was really fun. It was really cool to see it actually physically there and doing what it was supposed to do. And I think when we'd first taken the one up to Barry to actually bolt to the play field so you can start putting lighting on, you know, rather than needing to use a traditional like rotisserie type piece where it's, you know, rolling up and down to work on both sides, it's sitting there stable on its side, working on the parts right on your workbench. You know, you don't have to create a whole different work environment.
Yeah, and I actually built one of the rotisserie. You know, I took the plans and I bought all the parts and I built one of the rotisserie tables for the pin. As I was putting the initial components, and then once we got the frame, I took it apart and it's sitting in the corner of my garage now. I don't know if I'll ever use it again, because it's so much easier now for me to mount things when I'm sitting down at my workbench and it's sitting in front of me. Right? And I got my soldering iron there and not across the room. I don't have to move anything, and it's just so much easier on my back too. But, and so if anybody needs a rotisserie, I got one for sale. Cheap. Any other questions? Yes.
Kind of a chicken or the egg question.
Sure.
Okay.
Did you guys get started on this path because you had an idea for a game you wanted to make, or are you going to use this to make the game afterwards?
That's an interesting question. Did we come with have a game idea and then decide to build a game platform versus use the game platform to build a game?
Like you have your fire and ice set up.
Yep.
Upstairs, but what I'm really asking is, did you have to make your boards so you could make your game you wanted, or is it now that you have your boards, you can make this game? Like, which came first?
Want to answer that one?
Well, you know, I think that
I don't know if it was.
it's kind of.
I don't think it's that binary. I don't.
Yeah,
think.
it's kind of both. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, if we're gonna go through the process of like, you know, of course I had an idea I want to make. Starting down the process of researching how to do it, you know, it was a good opportunity to start bouncing ideas around about how could we do it differently? How could we make things a little more streamlined, a little more elegant, and work in some things like interchangeable playfields and stuff like that. So it was really kind of all the same way, because now I'm looking at it as I sit up there and I look at the cabinet that's bare there going, you know, I can't wait till my workshop's got a bunch of parts hanging on the wall and I can just start bolting things together. My kids can be sitting here showing me where they think pieces should go and figure out cool shots. I mean, it just becomes like a toy to start putting things together. The ideas for game design, it just becomes like I could take this plus this plus this, and that would look cool. And then I'm going to start messing with, like, you know, vacuum forming some cool ramps that like could get me up and over the top and drop me into this little bowl ramp thing. It speeds up the process of actually like seeing it come to life. And so I mean, it's not a one or the other thing. It was kind of like a process of discovery. Like, what could we make with this, and what could we create that would make making these even more elegant or more streamlined?
But if you were to hold us down and ask us, you know, truly which one it was, I think we built the platform so we can build some games. And the Fire Ice thing was just an idea because as we move forward with that prototype, it allows us to show how we can change the mood and the lighting on the entire playfield. Right. It's there's a couple modes there that we can show you that the lights will go from red, yellow, orange to green, blue, white. So the whole playfield changes the look and feel. And it's kind of hard to see it in that room because we have so much light where we are. But in a darker environment, you really get to see the drastic change between the two. And we have some ideas on what we want for the game, but we don't have a concrete original design yet that we're going through. But we wanted to make sure that we had, you know, we wanted to go overboard as what we would do with it. You know, well, we want 3 bumpers. Let's make sure we can support 8. Right? 2 slingshots. Let's make sure we can support 4. We're never going to use 4.
A fan on the top of the back box, or you want your plunger to be a trigger instead of a traditional plunger.
So we kind of said, what if we built, and I actually got some of this from Hyperpin, because for Hyperpin I needed a shooter, ball shooter, and I needed a button, because some games do a button, some don't. So we started thinking about, if we were to build a game that had like every possible component we could ever think of, we're never going to build it, but let's make sure that we can support it if we did want to build it. If we changed, you know, if we went down the path and went, you know, having a standard shooter is not the right thing, we want a trigger, we want to be able to do that without having to redo the hardware. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But any other questions?
So what else do we want to talk about?
I think it's getting early lunch.
Yeah, you know, like some of the things that like I've thought about is, you know, I've been hanging out up there is like, you know, I guess like one guy had asked me on Friday is like, you know, what would you like to do with this that you think this would enable you to do that you couldn't do before? And I kind of got thinking down the path of like, you know, for me, I thought it'd be awesome to be able to reach out to like, you know, some legendary like game designers, right? And say like, what's that game concept that's been in your head that you could never sell the boss on to actually produce? You know, what is that? Let's create an art house game, a boutique short run that actually gets that game into real life. And I think that, you know, making it easier, I mean, nowadays, like, I mean, producing and creating things and doing 3D printing and creating your own pieces and parts has never been easier. And so like to actually get a fully functioning, working prototype, original design game is not impossible anymore. And I think that, you know, in the heyday of original pinball, a lot of these designers were, you know, limited by the process of like creating the game, the design, and then actually sending it off to be produced. Now you can be involved in that process and tweak and modify without having to send the whole thing back to the drawing board. So I mean, if I were to like have my dream scenario, it'd be to like find some of these like legendary designers that want to create something new and work together and create really cool new original games. And I think that, you know, these things that we're doing here enable that. So, yeah.
I think that was it. If you guys have any questions, so we can come up afterwards and come upstairs as well. We'll be here for a while. Thanks, guys.